everyone, and welcome to Booming Encore's Learning Bites. My name is Susan Williams, and I'm the founder of Booming Encore. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Matt Del Vecchio. Matt is the owner of Lianas Services, Retirement Home and Transition Support. He's a chartered professional consultant on aging and also has both a radio show, along with being a columnist specifically on the aspects of aging. Now, Matt is here today to help us talk about the senior living industry and some of the changes and some of the all trends that are actually happening within this industry. So welcome, Matt. Great to have you.
Thanks for having me, Susan.
So Matt, let's just start off. Like, everybody's got a perception of the senior housing industry, and unfortunately it's possibly not so positive, especially after what we've witnessed from the pandemic. But you're saying that there's some changes underway. Do you want to share with us what some of these are?
Sure. I think what would be first important to understand is what is senior living, senior housing, because it's such a broad term. And sometimes when we think about senior residences, it almost scares people now in COVID. So I'd like to break it down into three categories, if you will. There's independent living, assisted living, and long-term care. And the reality is that the independent living and some of the assisted living retirement communities actually did quite well during this whole pandemic. I'm not to say it wasn't great, but much better than the third category, long-term care. Most of the hospitalizations and the deaths were in long-term care. So in terms of some of the trends that we see out there, I think we have to divide it into two categories. First, infection prevention and control, sometimes known as IPAC, and then the level of care actually being provided. So specifically on long-term care, the positive trend is for infection prevention and control compared to a year and a half ago. It is much better. You know, PPE might not have even been heard a year ago in nursing homes and long-term care. So from PPE, visitation policies, disinfection procedures, it has really been improved. The flu season was almost non-existent this year, and that's all a result of proper infection prevention and control. So that's a very positive trend. I would also say in terms of the next one, level of care, it's improving, but still we have a long ways to go. So part of that is we need to, we've seen trends both in US and in Canada where there are more employees, what we call staff to resident ratios. There's investments being done by governments in more employees, and that could be simply orderlies all the way up the chain to nurses and doctors. So we're seeing a little bit more of a positive trend, but still a long ways to go in the treatment of our elderly.
Okay, so basically the COVID really uncovered a lot of this stuff, but this has been there for quite a while, correct? This is not something that just happened overnight, which some people say, oh, COVID is, you know, the cause of this. In actual fact, some of these limitations were there for a period of time, correct?
Absolutely. This COVID almost triggered it. If there is a silver lining here, it brought awareness to the general public that, oh my goodness, long-term care, we have a lot of work to do. And so I think this is actually going to make things grow exponentially in terms of improvement. So, there is a silver lining and we still have a ways to go.
Okay. Now we've got an aging population. I mean, the baby boomers are starting to age, and potentially the demand for these type of services is also going to increase. What's your perspective on, do you think the industry is going to be able to actually respond to this? Are they going to have the capabilities, or are we going to be in a shortage of like a supply and demand situation?
There is definitely going to be a supply and demand situation as the population ages. However, if we go back to that independent living and assisted living sector, most of that is private industry, and they are building residences. Inventory is going up. They're adapting to these increasing demands. So I'm not overly concerned. In fact, I'm quite enthusiastic about what's going to be available for future generations in terms of independent living and assisted living. I would also say the same for long-term care. However, long-term care, especially in Canada, is very government funded, and to some extent in the US as well. That's going to take a lot of dollars and a lot of resources. And as this population grows, demographics are showing, we're going to need a lot more long-term care, and we're going to need a lot more home care as well. That's one way of combating this, is maybe we could stay at home longer. So if it's government funded, that's going to take some time. we're going to have to really advocate as a population, because there's going to have to be some dollars and resources thrown both at long-term care residences and home care.
And are you seeing any increase in the use of technology within these homes? Or like, I mean, we read a lot about the technology that's being developed for aging. Are you seeing any sort of improvements that are coming into the living arrangements around some of this sort of activity?
Well, certainly, if we're on Zoom right now, and so from a technology standpoint, virtual meetings with perhaps children or grandchildren that are out of town, this just really leapfrog into, this wasn't done a year ago. They had to rely on physical visits, and so in that respect, all of a sudden you've got mom or dad or grandma or grandpa pressing a button on their iPad or their laptop and seeing the kids and seeing the family. So that has helped out, is becoming the norm. So that is quite positive. And so technology is helping out. Things like Alexa and a bunch of other, clicking on a button and all of a sudden you're talking to family, and that will continue. The challenge is, of course, is that generation aren't very tech savvy, so they got to rely on staff. They've got to rely on their kids and the grandkids to kind of get them up to speed. But I think as time goes on and more people are comfortable with using technology, it will be a great thing for future people living in residences and senior living communities.
And so just based on that, in your perspective of this industry, what sort of excites you and what sort of scares you?
I'm going to give the same answer, I think, Susan, for both. Boomers are aging. So that's exciting because boomers are typically trendsetters and they will not accept status quo. And we're all seeing what has happened in this past year. And it has been a lot of awareness, a lot of red flags, and we're already hearing it. There's no way I'm going to be in situations like that. So boomers won't accept status quo anymore. So that excites me because they will push the boundaries to much better senior living communities. It's a very competitive industry and everyone's out trying to do each other. And there's tons of services, especially on the independent living and assisted living. We tour these residences and communities all the time. And some of them are cruise ships that aren't moving. It's incredible. Long-term care still has a ways to go, but that's even improving. So I'm very excited about where the industry is going. So what am I scared about? Boomers are aging. Same answer, in the sense that because, just to give a stat, it'll be somewhere around the range. Over the next 20 years, there will be a 50% increase of those 65 and older. That's a big wave of people that are going to be over 65 that will require, inevitably, we're all aging and we're going to require more care. We're going to require more communities that can offer this care, and at the extreme, long-term care. So if we're relying on government, I'm not as hopeful. There's going to be, again, more money and resources have to be poured into this, but boomers are really starting to advocate. I'm loving just the fact that we're even talking about this, Susan. We wouldn't have been talking about this, say, a year ago. So I really believe that with advocation and people pushing the boundaries, it will help us. But again, we need some government backing, and because let's face it, no matter which way we slice it, if you're saying staff can be more efficient and do things better, bottom line is we need more people to provide better care, and we need better buildings. No more 4 to a room or to an apartment. We need private rooms, maybe semi-private at best. No more of this warehousing of our elderly. That has to go.
No, I totally agree with you, Matt. So I'm hopeful with you, and that I'd like to be optimistic that this is definitely an area that's going to be improving over time. But like you said, there's going to be a lot of money that's going to be required. I'm just hoping that we're going to be able to find it and to be able to support this and actually, improve care for everybody. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Susan.
And to everybody out there, we hope you found this information valuable and it helps you live your best booming encore. Bye for now.